How to write a text-dependent analysis for informational text. Copyright 2019, Luke Sullivan. The 16th Street Baptist Church Bombing by Jessica McBirney. Today you'll begin an essay about events that took place during the 1960s as a part of the civil rights movement. Today's prompt. Both courage and persistence are needed to end injustice. Write an essay analyzing the interrelationships between courage and persistence in the 16th Street Baptist Church Bombing. Use evidence from the text to support your work. This TDA has two component elements: courage needed to overcome injustice and persistence needed to overcome injustice. The student's essay must describe both elements and discuss the interrelationships between the two before drawing conclusions based on these ideas. It looks like this. The work begins with a close reading of the text. The purpose for this first read is to get an understanding of the meaning of the text. What did the author say? What's the gist? Before reading, look for bolded words. The author thinks these words are important to support the understanding of the text. Look for subheadings. They usually identify the way the text is organized. Examine any graphic elements, charts, photographs, maps. As you read, stop at the end of each paragraph. Write a word or phrase to summarize the important information in the paragraph. Then make a chart in your notebook and gather the words and phrases that you wrote to summarize the text. Studies show this discussion with visible products, like a notebook, better enables students to understand the information and identify structural elements of the text. Now you'll read the text a second time. The purpose for this read is to clarify how the author wrote her text. How is the topic introduced? How are the ideas organized? What's the purpose of the subheadings? What's the tone? The student must step back and take a metacognitive approach while reading the text. Students read text for a second time. They make observations in their notebook about how the author used the writing craft. Now you read the text for a third time. The purpose of this read is to determine why the author wrote this text. Why did the author choose this thinking strategy? Why did the author choose this tone? Look for examples of courage and persistence. What conclusions can be based on the ideas you identified after the second read? As you begin the work again, reread the prompt. Write an essay analyzing the interrelationships between courage and persistence in the 16th Street Baptist Church Bombing. How are persistence and courage interrelated? What conclusions can be drawn from these ideas? The informational TDA can be organized in the same fashion as the narrative TDA. The essay is a series of 3 beats increasing in intellectual rhythm. The first beat presents a summary of what the author said in the text. The second beat explains how the author organized the text and presented the text. The third beat will present conclusions, explaining why the author chose this topic and thinking strategy. The first intellectual beat is an abbreviated retelling of the important information from the text, highlighting the elements you'll discuss. This comes from the notes of your first read. It's what the author says. Don't assume that the reader of your essay will have read the text. Here's an example of what you could have written. The next intellectual beat of the essay examines how the author writes. The student writer steps outside of the story and comments on how the author uses the conventions of writing informational texts. Take this information from your second read notes. Here's an example of what you could have written. The last intellectual beat of the essay examines why the author made the choices you've identified in your second and third reads. By saving these ideas for the third beat, the essay writer creates an intellectual rhythm of building complexity. Be sure to use a compare and contrast strategies with your examples of courage and persistence. What conclusions can you make about the subject, purpose, and tone of the text? And why is this message about courage and persistence appropriate for middle school students? The word revise means to look at again. Reread your essay multiple times, each with a different purpose. The purpose for the first read. Is your essay focused? Does it clarify the interrelationship between courage and persistence? Does the essay draw conclusions? A second read. Does the essay address how the text is written? Does the essay take a metacognitive approach and examine the writer's craft? For the final read, are standard writing conventions followed? Are words spelled correctly? Good job!